Even though I've never publicly stated this, you probably already know that I'm not a huge fan of essential oils. I mean, come on, they're basically just screaming alternative medicine. Aromatherapy is definitely something that can make your living room smell nicer, but don't expect these things to cure you of anything. Isn't medicine just the best? There's no easy way out of anything. You could get screwed so fast by so many things, and you can't just light an incense to cure it. What a cruel world we live in. Thanks to anyone who sends me fan arts, by the way, I really appreciate them. I try to showcase as many as I can in videos, but I can't get to all of them, so eventually I'll put them in slideshows or something to show off everything that was sent to me. Anyway, let's get into the video, shall we? Ooh, essential oils. Here's a video of a speaker telling us what essential oils are, why they're effective, and that we should be using them as integrative medicine for cancer treatment. Whoa, that's a lot of stuff. Let's jump right into it then.
So what are essential oils? Essential oils are volatile organic compounds. What does that mean? They evaporate.
He's not wrong here, I'm just adding some additional information. I mean, you guys know how my channel works, I love to add random facts here and there. Essential oils are within a category called volatile organic compounds, and these are compounds which have low boiling points, causing them to constantly be evaporating under room temperature conditions. Basically, it has a high vapor pressure, and that makes it easy to separate from whatever source we obtain them from. So for example, essential oils can be separated from other molecules through evaporation, which can then be collected and cooled back down to its liquid phase. That's one way of obtaining them. He actually briefly mentions that next.
So when you steam distill a plant matter, whether it's a resin, whether it's a root, whether it's a blossom, whether it's a whatever it might be, tree bark, you distill these plant matters, and what happens is through a beautiful biochemistry reaction, you have these volatile organic compounds that emit through the steam distiller. Once they're condensed with a cooling water tube, you get to extract them.
This is essentially what happens, except there's no biochemical reaction happening during distillation. You have physical changes only. For those of you who don't know, distillation is how we separate molecules within a solution based on their boiling points. So let's say we had a solution that had the particular essential oil we desire, but it's mixed in with other compounds. Since we know that the essential oil has a low boiling point, supposedly much lower than all the other compounds within the solution, then we can gently heat it up and evaporate the oil. This is then collected in a tube, which is run through a water bath to cool it back down to a liquid where it relocates into another flask. Only physical changes are occurring, no chemical reactions required. But of course, this isn't the only way to separate essential oils. We have other methods like solvent extraction. This one is fascinating. Basically, essential oils are hydrophobic. We can put the solution in a mixture of water and a non-polar organic solvent like hexane, and that would naturally separate molecules based on hydrophilicity. There's a whole field of organic chemistry based on separation methods, and they're all quite fascinating if you're interested.
And they're not greasy. They're very, they're called oil, but they're not an oil, actually. And they're not essential, which is interesting. It's a misnomer.
Yeah, I found that pretty funny too. Thank God it's a misnomer. In metabolic biochemistry, essential means it is something that is required by the body, but the body can't produce it at all or enough of it, so it is necessary for the organism to obtain it from an outside source. A few examples in humans include valine, phenylalanine, methionine, omega fatty acids, and of course this list changes depending on the organism. That's why the name essential oils kind of bothers me a bit, because the name implies that it is needed to be consumed by the human body, which obviously that's not the case.
I mean, can I geek out a little science? I'm not really the biggest science guy here. Some people just wow my brain.
With all due respect, if you're on stage talking about how essential oils will help your treatment in cancer, you're probably not the biggest science guy there.
But they're secondary metabolites of photosynthesis. What does that mean?
It's not correct to say secondary metabolites of photosynthesis. That's not a thing. The correct way to say this is secondary metabolites of plants. Time for some nitpicking. Secondary metabolites are compounds that don't directly contribute to growth and survival of the organism, but rather they play an important side function. For example, they can play a role in protection, perhaps as a toxin, or they can be pheromones, or they can be signaling molecules. Essentially, they don't play such an important role such as growth and survival, but they are important too, and without them the organism would suffer from various disadvantages. So in other words, metabolites are a property of the organism. Saying secondary metabolites of photosynthesis isn't correct because there's nothing about photosynthesis that can fit within the definition of secondary metabolites, since it is a process and not a living organism. But let's see what your understanding of metabolites are.
The primary metabolite, who knows? What's the primary metabolite of photosynthesis? Glucose. We need glucose or we die.
Well, whether or not we as humans need it is irrelevant to glucose being under the definition of a primary metabolite.
That's what plants use. That's what people, animals, we need. So photosynthesis, the whole point of photosynthesis is to create glucose. The secondary product, a lot of things, including essential oils.
I think you got secondary metabolites mixed up with secondary product.
They are chemicals. They're alcohols, esters, ketones. Things that there's no nutrition in them. No vitamins, no minerals, nothing.
That's not the definition of secondary metabolite. I don't even know what terminology you got mixed up with this time. Things that you mentioned, like alcohols, do have nutritional value. They become energy for us to use. But of course, you can't depend on them as much as, say, carbohydrates, of course. Ketones also have value, and depending on the ketone itself, it can be turned into acetyl-CoAs to be used by the body. So, yeah, no idea what you're talking about here.
But they're fat-loving and they're water-hating. That's why we call them oil. Comparatively, these are your fixed oils. Your coconut oil, your almond oil, your grapeseed oil. They're completely different. They're non-volatile, meaning they don't evaporate.
I mean, it's not like they don't evaporate at all. It just takes more energy to do so.
They're very greasy. They're expressed or they're solvent extracted, which are just, again, it's in the book.
Essential oils are also solvent extracted. Thank you very much.
So why is this important? Because essential oils are very, very special. Their properties can do things, or their properties are such they can accomplish a goal that drugs can't. For example, it's virtually impossible for most drugs, especially chemotherapy, to enter the blood-brain barrier, right? You all know that?
Yep, and sometimes that makes it a problem trying to get certain drugs to treat brain tumors. Wow, our body's working against us. Who would have known?
Well, sesquiterpenes, which is a chemical in many essential oils like frankincense. Who's ever heard of frankincense? Yeah. Why we heard of frankincense? Well, yes, the Jesus story, frankincense, gold, and myrrh. But we've heard of it because so many people, especially if you've listened to the Global Quest for the Cure, you heard Allison Hewish's talk, a friend of ours, how she used a frankincense essential oil to cure herself of a brain tumor.
Okay. First of all, promoting something as a cancer cure is just dishonest in and of itself. Saying something cured someone of cancer is misleading. There is no cure to cancer right now, but there are treatments. But aside from that, let's talk about frankincense a bit. It has been used in ancient cultures for various medicinal purposes, but just because people used it in the past doesn't mean it's effective in any way. Of course, we have to get into the research of it, of which there aren't many. Doesn't seem like many biologists are interested in testing frankincense, but a few papers do exist. For example, Boswellic acids reside in frankincense, but only if distillation was not used as an extraction method, and various forms of these acids have anti-inflammatory properties. A step to creating a hospital tumor microenvironment is inflammation, so in that sense it could help in preventing the formation of said environment. But it's not just that. There are some other experiments too that showed that perhaps there are some apoptotic and even immune boosting properties exhibited when exposed to boswellic acid. Ooh, sounds good, doesn't it? So why not just buy a bunch of frankincense and rub it all over your sweaty body? Well, let me tell ya. First of all, these effects have only been shown in the laboratory and haven't gone past that. Yes, that means no human trials. It may work in theory, but transitioning it to a practical setting is an entirely different story. Not to mention that if it does pass all the trials, it'd likely be a particular molecule or compound within the solution that would be effective in treatment, like boswellic acid, for example. And then that molecule just becomes a drug that we use today. Yeah, that's how drugs are developed. It always starts with laboratory testing, then retesting, then clinical trials, and finally FDA approval. Boswellic acid could just become another cancer drug. But before that happens, the papers that are published must be peer-reviewed, and they must move past the laboratory setting. This entire research is so new we can't draw many conclusions yet. So until it has been proven to work practically in humans, it's better to say that it doesn't. Don't go buying frankincense thinking it'll help for cancer. It doesn't, not yet at least. But you know what you could do? Is to use treatments that have moved past clinical trials and been approved by the FDA.
They literally pass the blood-brain barrier. They are so small. The Daltons, again, for those chemistry nerds out there, they're so light that they have the ability to go right into the cell. No facilitated diffusion.
That's more so because they're hydrophobic, not because they're small. But how much would that do anyway? Passing the blood-brain barrier is useful for treating brain tumors, but for the other 99% of cancers out there, that's not too particularly useful. I mean, if you said they're hydrophobic and thus can easily pass through cell membranes, then I suppose that's a different story.
And I gotta be careful, especially for people that are live streaming. I don't want anyone to misconstrue me, especially my aromatherapy colleagues. I'm a aromatherapist. This is not an all or nothing thing. I am not dichotomizing chemo and oils. Not at all. I'm a very much integrative kind of person. Research has actually proven and shown that essential oils help chemo be more effective.
Okay, that I'm gonna need a citation for. What research has shown that exactly? I admit integrative medicine isn't as bad as alternative medicine, but it can be harmful in its own way. Say, for example, the substance has a malicious interaction with one of the drugs you're on. If you're interested in integrative medicine, fine, but just make sure to talk to your doctor about it just in case it could harm you. Also, don't think that in any way, shape, or form did your integrative treatment heal you. It's just another form of pseudoscience. Like, think about it. If there was something that could boost your treatment, your doctor would prescribe it to you. If there was actual integrative medicine that helped, it would just be medicine.
If you're undergoing radiation, well, let's help your body react to it in a positive way. That's where essential oils come into play. They help with side effects like nothing else on the planet, literally.
Maybe it could help you relax, but really it's just placebo. I don't see how essential oils would help with the side effects of chemo, for example, but there's one problem I've yet to address. What type of cancer specifically do you think essential oils will help for? Pseudo-medicine proponents are never specific. Drugs are often targeted at specific types of cancer, since each cancer can be pretty much treated as its own disease. Saying cancer in general is the fastest way to raise red flags here. Anyway, that's my time here. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you to Fireshard, Shirkan, and Elliot for being the top patrons. I'll see you next week.